Here we are. Hello, everyone. Hello, Vanderbricks, who says A part 2. G'day, Mark Edge, who says looking like all systems go. That is correct. MarTV, g'day. Thank you, Mark, for the comment about the nice holding pic. Yeah, that's tonight's thumbnail. Yeah, so camping stories part 2. Everyone seemed to enjoy the last one, and I've got plenty more to talk about, so that's what we're doing. So on tonight's agenda, I will first give some updates, and then I will talk about some of the stories, and hopefully show a few photos along the way. I will give you some of my tips for camping that I've sort of come to learn over the years, I guess. And we'll finish off hopefully with my favourite campsites. So I'm sure there's more than enough to fill up an hour. So this was a couple of live streams back, but I need to correct the record to say that when I was talking about the Rubicon Forest, I didn't think that there was a steam winch powered incline, but there was indeed a steam winch powered incline. So there you go. It was near the Royston River, I've got written down. If you want further details, you'd have to read the book Rails to Rubicon. So yeah. Since my time away from the channel, I've hit I hit 500 subscribers, so thank you very much. And then just recently, within the past week or two, I've hit 600 subscribers, so that's pretty cool. Thanks so much to everyone who is subscribed, and yeah, here's to 1,000. That's the next goal, I guess. Map updates for my railway map, which is now linked in the description. I've just done sort of minor route changes here and there to make things more accurate. Ballarat sightings have been updated, notably the Ballarat cattle sighting. I've updated it because previously I had it marked down as destroyed alignment, but it's got significant sections where track is still there, and I've sort of I know I walked some of it maybe 5-6 years ago, but yeah, I don't know how things have changed since then, and I've just been sort of basing it off Google Satellite and Street View. So yeah, if you have a look and you are a Ballarat resident, or you know that some part has changed since that, since what I've got on the map, then please get in touch. And I've sadly had to mark the Bungaree Loop down as disused track. I know parts of it have actually been ripped up. I don't know if the whole thing has yet, but yeah, nice little part of Ballarat line history, which is lost to the history books now, but that's progress. And yeah, if I'm being completely honest, the current route makes a lot more sense. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's that. G'day Stephen, who's just joined. MarTV says, nice chat with you at Somerton. Yes, indeed. And thanks everyone for the good wishes about the subscribers. Anyway, so stories. No particular order to this one, but yeah, actually before I start, I've got that. Okay. Alright, I haven't actually gotten all the photos that I wanted to put into my stream tonight, but that's alright, we can find them. It'll just take a bit longer. I was hoping to have everything organised, but yeah, just didn't get the chance to. Anyway, first story is going to be of returning to the 2018 road trip that I did with my good friend Les, where we travelled around for 2 weeks looking at abandoned buildings. And so one of the campsites that we visited that was memorable, let's say, was the nil former RAAF base, Royal Australian Air Force base. Now, yeah, it's obviously been out of use as an RAAF base for, I don't know, 50 odd years at least. But it's still used as an airport and a museum, and you can actually camp there, or yeah, you can set up camp. Now, it's totally free, but it's managed by a group, some sort of community group, and so when we're looking at trying to find information about it, we couldn't specifically find whether they allowed people in tents or not, because some places only allow caravans and such, which is a bit strange, but anyway. So we managed to find a contact number, and we rang them up and said, hey, we've got a tent, could we stay at the base? And they said, yeah, look, we've never really had anyone ask before, but you're absolutely welcome to. And yeah, so that was that, and we thought, cool. Then when we actually arrived at the base, it was late. I'm thinking back to the night, and it was just one of those days on the trip where things had run severely over time, which was a frequent occurrence, as you would have heard in the last stream. But it was so late, and to top it all off, it was a total fire ban, so we couldn't use our open gas stove, because it's an open flame, and that's no good on a total fire ban day, especially in the middle of January, when everything is pretty dry. And so yeah, we couldn't cook any dinner for ourselves, and we thought, that's all right, we'll find somewhere to eat. Nil, it's a reasonably big town, on the main highway from Melbourne to Adelaide. So we managed, but because things ran so late, and it's still a country town, things still shut at, I don't know, 7:38, and it was about 8 p.m, but maybe 8:15 by the time we were actually needing to eat. And so I remember we found the only place that was really open at that hour was a Caltex Roadhouse. So not the most glamorous thing in the world, but hey, it was food, and we were just going to take anything we could get. And they didn't have much, but we managed to score some real basic food. Like I no joke, I think my order was like 5 dim sims and 5 potato cakes. That was my dinner. And Les's order was not too much different. But I remember the guy serving me just sort of started piling in dim sims and potato cakes, and then halfway through he's like, "How many did you want again?" And I was like, "Oh, 5 of each." And he's like, "Oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5." So he's already put a few in, and then he's counted 5, not including the ones that were already in the packet. So I ended up getting something like 7 dim sims and 8 potato cakes. I laugh because, it's probably the least glamorous dinner I've ever had, but it was something. And you know what? I was just hungry. And sometimes when you're hungry, you'll just eat anything. And it was one of those times. So we sort of were sitting in the roadhouse eating our dim sims and potato cakes. And they were sort of looking at us strangely, and we were sort of going like, yeah, what? And then they said to us, sorry, but like it's 8:30 or something, we're closed. You can't stay here anymore. And we were like, oh, all right, fair enough, So we thought, okay, well, we'll just go straight to camp, and hopefully get camp set up before it's dark, because the sun was setting at this point. Possibly had already set, but we drove to camp and found a spot to set up, and it was windy, like I mean really windy. And Nil is sort of in the western plains of Victoria, so the wind has just got an endless, boundless plains to just pick up speed. And so, God, it was so windy, and it was getting dark, and we're trying to set up the tent, but the tent is blowing everywhere, and we're trying to get pegs into the ground, but the ground is like rock hard, and so if you've ever set up a tent with thin tent pegs, you know what it's like when you encounter hard ground. You just bend tent pegs and you don't actually achieve anything. So we're trying to like hammer the tent pegs in without bending them too much, and meanwhile the wind is blowing a tent away, and it's just a disaster. And we had the car's headlights. We were in Les's van, and so he had his headlights facing the tent so that we could, try and set up. But at one point we were like, this isn't working. We need to use the van as a windbreak so that we can actually get our tent set up, and we're just going to have to work in sort of near darkness. And I think we had some lamps and head torches and basic stuff like that. It wasn't great, but it would do. And so, yeah, we repositioned the van to be a wind block, and it was still quite windy, but enough. It blocked the wind enough just for us to get our bloody tent set up, and finally pegged it all down. And I think we left the van in the position that it was, just as for fear that our tent might blow away in the middle of the night, because it was bloody windy, and God, yeah, I just remember it being in constant struggle. But finally we got to bed, and I don't think I managed to finish my dim sims and potato cakes, and so the good thing about being inland is that it gets fairly cold overnight, like fridge temperatures. So I was like, meh, I'll just leave my dim sims and potato cakes in the van. They'll be right. And they were. But Les was slightly horrified the next day when, he was sort of going like, oh yeah, what's for breakfast? And I said, dim sims and potato cakes. Still got to eat them. Yeah, I ate them and felt fine. I'd had enough of dim sims and potato cakes by that point, but yeah, it was something. So that was memorable. All right, let's read some comments. Mark says, would be cool to have a large format printout of the map, referring to my railway map. Yeah, that would be cool, and I have thought about it. Maybe I could sell them, perhaps, yeah. But way into the future. MarTV says, I'm planning on doing a day trip to Horsham, Stawell or Dimboola on the Overland. Yeah, that could be cool. I've been on the Overland once from Adelaide to Melbourne, but I would like to go on it again. Yeah, both Stawell and Dimboola, they're nice towns. Patrick, g'day Patrick, says, going to Mount Sterling to camp on Monday and Tuesday for my outdoor ed class. So excited. Yeah, that sounds cool. Which one would be your best spot for rail fanning? They'd be both about equal, to be honest. Yeah, I don't really see a big difference between them. Hi, Victorian Rail Heritage. Food is food, says Vanderbricks. Indeed. Roderick Smith, breaking his code of silence tonight. Hi all. Nil was our standard stop on the all-night drive to and from Adelaide for railway events, petrol and driver change. There was an all-night roadhouse, and we would buy hamburgers at 2 a.m. Well, the all-night roadhouse is no longer all-night, at least for food. Or at least not the Caltex one. Mark says, can only imagine the odour in the van the next day. No, there was no odour. They didn't smell at all because they were cold, so it was fine. Vanderbricks, I had outdoor ed last year. We called it indoor ed. Yeah, fair enough. You're not doing much outdoors last year. Anyway, moving on. Another memorable camp. Castlemaine Railway Station. Yes, I've camped there before. I slept in the car park of Castlemaine Railway Station. I've told that to a few friends and they've thought I was a bit strange for choosing that as a campsite, but hey, it was the perfect spot, to be real honest. So the context was that I was going on a steam rail trip, and the steam rail trip was the Swan Hill Overlander, and so that was leaving from Castlemaine in the morning and travelling to Swan Hill, and I thought, sounds like a good trip to go on. It was hauled by R711. It was the first time it was going back to Swan Hill since being preserved, so that was cool. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll go to Castlemaine, and I knew of a reasonably good campsite in the town of Newstead, which is probably I'm guessing 10-15 minutes drive out of Castlemaine. Not far at all. Maybe a little bit longer, but point is, it wasn't a long drive, and I thought, oh yeah, well, yeah, I'll see what Castlemaine looks like, and then I will be able to go to either go back to Castlemaine in the morning if I stay at Newstead, or I can just stay at Castlemaine. But I thought, oh, either way, I'll go to Castlemaine first the night before, and check it out, see what's going on. So I arrived, and I believe at the time I had a fairly late uni class, so I wasn't able to get out of the city until sunset. What time was sunset? I want to say around 7 p.m, something like that. Maybe I don't know. It was early. It was fairly early. Anyway, by the time I got to Castlemaine, it was dark, and I sort of pulled up and had a stretch, as you do after you've been driving for a couple of hours, and I could just hear and see all of the stuff that was going on. I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think I remember hearing what sounded like a jackhammer, and I was like, what the hell is that? Turns out it was the pressure relief valve on R711. I'd heard pressure relief valves on steam engines before, but they were more of a continuous release rather than I don't know what to call it, jackhammer sort of release. But yeah, that's what R711 has on it. So I thought, okay, looks like there's some activity. I'll head down to platform 3 and yeah, see what's going on. So walked down there, and yeah, there's some people around, and then I saw Lionel, who's a steam rail volunteer who I knew. So I said g'day to him and had a brief chat to him. I had just recently, like within the past week or two, at that point, lost my camera for good. And I've told that story before, but basically I left it on a train accidentally and never got it back. But yeah, so I was pretty salty that I was going on this awesome trip without an actual camera. But I thought, well, now's as good a time as ever to learn to use my phone properly. And so, yeah, after a brief chat to Lionel, he said, and keep in mind, Lionel is standing down on the track while I'm up on the platform, and there's a small ladder that has been put so that you can climb down onto the track, because this is all the VGR track and nothing's moving for the night, so it was quite safe for everyone to be down there. And so yeah, we had a chat to Lionel, and he said, why don't you come down onto the tracks and I'll show you around the yard for a bit. I said, yeah, sounds great, thanks for the offer. So, got down and had a nice little walk around the yard, and during my walk around the yard I took one of my favourite photos that I've ever taken, and it was all done on my phone. So that's cool. Yeah. And so, yeah, just walked around. It was quite a chilly but peaceful night. And yeah, after walking around for a bit, it was time for me to go to bed. Pretty much everyone else had gone to bed by that stage, I think, as well. And I'd just parked my car in a sort of shady spot in the back corner of the Castlemaine car park, and yeah, had my mattress and sleeping bag set up in the back of that, and yeah, had a quite nice sleep. Got up in the morning, went on the trip, went home that evening. Brilliant little day. Now I can show you photos of that because I've got them already organised. Just give me a moment. Get Lightroom prepared. Okay. If I turn my camera off like that, yeah, so you can see if I, go like, there we go. It's a little bit cropped actually, so maybe if I just go back like that, then you can at least see the whole thing, or most of it at least. Why is it? I see. Give me a moment. There we go. Now you can see the whole thing. That's better. That's better. Yeah. There we go. That is one of my favourite photos that I've ever taken. Yeah, so that's Lionel in front of me and walking beside R711. You can really get a sense for scale there. Yeah, but just magical memories, hey? Magical memories. Walking further around the yard. Oops. Another colour view of 711. At night. Oh yeah, Tambo. Lovely carriage Tambo. And this was my view in the morning. How nice is that? Yeah, just magical memories. How about that? That's my story of the Swan Hill Overlander. Made a few mistakes in my capturing of photos with my phone, namely battery usage. I ran out of battery by the end of the trip, but oh well, lesson learnt. And although I wish that I never lost my camera to begin with, in the end it taught me some good lessons, so not all is wasted. Not all a bad thing. Roderick says, for Patrick, my camping on Mount Sterling was in an igloo. It was an igloo camp, but everyone else used hike tents with snow pegs. Alright. MarTV said, our school was meant to go to the outback, but got canned because of COVID, so instead we are going to an adventure camp in Trafalgar. Alright. Year 10 and 11 only. Okay. And great shots to Stephen. Thank you very much. Right. We've been going for 38 minutes and we're not even halfway through, but running over time is a common occurrence, so I'm sure we'll be alright. Anyway, I think I talked a bit about this in my last camping episode, but the 707 Farewell Broad Gauge Trio I guess was a fairly memorable trip, and what really the camping aspects of that stand out to me was, I mean, A, it's another trip where I slept in the back of my car, but B, it was nice because well, I remember the first one, which was the Murrayville, the Farewell Murrayville broad gauge trip, and you know, Murrayville is quite a way away, and I was getting on at Oyen, which is I'm guessing a 5-hour drive, something like that, from Melbourne. 5 hours straight driving, plus, you know, stop for rests and whatnot. And again, I got away. I had a late class on Fridays at uni, and although I parked my car in the city, I still got away late after sunset, and so I arrived at Oyen at something like 1 a.m. It was late, and I was just done with driving. But you know, I had to take it easy because, you know, whatever rail trip you go on, it's not worth dying for. So made sure that I wasn't too fatigued on the road. But yeah, just I remember getting there and just being exhausted and sort of parking up in the station car park. Not quite as blatantly as Castlemaine, but you know, and just sleeping in my car, collapsing. And when I woke up in the morning, there was plenty of people about. I'm sure more than a few had a peek into my car and saw me sleeping, so don't know how I really feel about that. I don't know. Doesn't seem to have affected me. And yeah, so got up and the train arrived, and you know, I ended up not getting the bus back like I was meant to, but getting the train back, and doing a dodgy at Oyen. By that I mean getting off in the yard, not in the platform, because we didn't stop in the platform on the way back. But you know, I was told if anyone asks, you were wearing a high vis. So I was like, cool, thanks 707, thank you very much. I appreciate their generosity and their rule bending. V-Line, you didn't hear that. They were very kind to me, and yeah, there was no, although there may or may not have been some rule bending, it was fine. You know, it's Oyen in the middle of the night when there's only one train there and nothing's moving, so yeah, slept in my car that night again, and went back to Melbourne the next morning. For the oh, hang on.
We're cruising.
On live streaming.
Huh? Right.
So yeah, for the other two, the Sea Lake and Manangatang lines, I stayed at the same place for both of them, and that was what is it? Kurting. That's right. I think Menangatang was the first of the trips, or second, I should say, of the trio, and I had gone. I don't know how I found Kurting as a camp, but I did, and it had a few broken, rotted sleepers in a great big pile. So I thought, perfect, I can salvage a couple of them as firewood, and yeah, got a nice little fire going, and that was nice. And then chased it to Bort, maybe, yeah, where I got on. Or was it Charlton? I can't remember exactly which station I got on for which trip. I got on at Charlton at one trip, but I think that was Sea Lake, and I think Bort was the other one. Yeah, must have been Menangatang. Anyway, did that. That was cool. And when it came time for the Sea Lake one, a friend was joining me who also wanted to camp with me the night before. So I said, yeah, sounds good. And he was going to get there before I did. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, maybe he discovered the campsite, and it was the Sea Lake trip which was first. Quite possibly. Maybe I've got my dates mixed around. Anyway, Kurting was a nice little camp, and the exact order, who really cares? I'm pretty sure. I think I found it first, and then they did after. But yeah, had a nice little campfire there either way, and yeah, they got there first, and so I remember, driving along the highway and seeing the little flicker of the campfire and pulling in. So just another little magic memory. Yeah, and I've been back, I think once or twice to Kurting since, not to camp, but just sort of passing by, and the ashes of my campfire are still there. So yeah, I might have stayed there a third time. I can't remember, but I remember seeing some freight trains in the night, and thanks goes out to another friend of mine who works as a signalman for V-Line, and he was able to give me some heads up of the possible freight trains which could be rolling through in the night. So yeah. So let's see. Yeah, that's the Farewell Broad Gauge Trio covered. I'll touch on this one briefly, which is when I was camping near Ararat. I've camped in Ararat a number of times for various different reasons. A few times just to sort of get away for a day or two. I've done that quite a few times. And Ararat's a nice sort of place. I really do like the West. But anyway, I was staying in Ararat and I was doing some general exploring of the area. I think this time I might have been seeing a 707 trip to Denali as well. But anyway, I was driving in the Grampians, and this is where the story really starts. And I was just driving down some scenic roads, dirt roads, but I was on my way to Hall Scap, just the scenic way. And I was on this dirt road, and the Grampians are one of my favourite places if you want to see native wildlife, because it's everywhere in the Grampians. And I'm just driving along, and this is a pretty solid dirt road. You could easily do 80 to 100 k's an hour, no problem, in terms of your vehicle. But I'm probably doing about 80 k's an hour at this point, and up ahead of me I just see so many animals, like, oh, there's a wombat crossing the road. Oh, there's a kangaroo that's jumped across the road. Oh, emus run across the road. Oh, there's another kangaroo. Oh, there's another emu. Oh, another animal, you know? And I'm just thinking, like, I'm going to hit one of these animals sooner or later, and I don't have a bull bar, so I don't really feel like destroying my vehicle, so I'm going to slow right down. And I thought, look, I think 60 k's an hour is a good sort of happy medium. I probably would do a bit of damage if I hit an emu, but if I hit a small wallaby or a kangaroo, I don't think it'd do much damage, especially if I've got, even a split second to brake, then I should be alright. And 60 is, a good, not too slow, but not too fast. Yeah. And so going along, close call. And then driving along, there's a kangaroo. Slam on the brakes. Boom! I hit the kangaroo. I'm like, shit. And I'm just sort of, the ABS is kicking in, and I'm slowing down as quick as I can, but I've hit this poor kangaroo, and kangaroo strikes, although you don't want them to happen, they're sort of an inevitability of driving in the outback. Well, not the Grampians, it's really the outback, but the country, I'll say. Any area with a high population of kangaroos. And so the first thing I did when I got out of the car was because the kangaroo had sort of slid off and was a bit down the road. So the first thing I did when I got out was checked my car. I couldn't really see any damage at first, and I was like, there's got to be some damage. That was a fairly big kangaroo, and I hit it. I didn't have any time at all to slow down. Surely I've damaged something. But I thought, okay, we'll see. Let's go see what the kangaroo is like. Is the kangaroo dead? What's going on? The kangaroo was in a ditch, and the kangaroo had a broken leg and was bleeding from the eye, but was not dead. And that's really sad, because now the kangaroo's suffering, and there's not much you can really do about it. People have suggested if the kangaroo was on the main road, turn around, pick up some speed, drive over it again to put it out of its misery, but it was in a ditch. I couldn't do that. So the one thing that I could do was I actually still had one bar of reception. So I managed to figure out my GPS position and call the wildlife helpline and said, yeah, look, I've hit a kangaroo. It's suffering. Can you please come out and put it down? And they wanted an address out of me, and I really couldn't give them an address. I could give them the name of the road and my GPS position, and that was about it. But then they said to me, look, the best thing that you can do is actually drive away, and then you're not distressing the kangaroo, and we'll come out and we'll euthanize it. So I thought, yep, that sounds like a good idea. So I drove on to Halls Gap, and I assumed the kangaroo was euthanized. I never went back to see. But when I did get into Halls Gap, I saw another kangaroo get hit. Not by me, thankfully, but by another car, and it hit them on the side and killed them fairly quickly. And the person was obviously a tourist who had very little experience driving in the country, because they sort of freaked out that they'd hit a kangaroo and they didn't really know what to do, and they were sort of saying, like, you know, what do I do, and a local was there, and so him and I, we dragged this dead kangaroo off the road, and yeah, just sort of explained to her, look, it happens. Yeah, and I said, look, I've just hit a kangaroo, you're lucky that you put it out of its misery, because my one unfortunately didn't. And it's strange because I'd almost say for sure that they were going a slower speed than I was, but they sort of hit the kangaroo on, it's sort of like the car was driving this way and the kangaroo hit the side of the car and sort of got caught under the back wheel. So that's how it was killed, with a slower speed than what I was going. And it might have been a smaller kangaroo. I can't really remember. But yeah, just that sort of thing happens a lot in the country, unfortunately. But I went to the pub and had a very nice meal. I think I ordered a Thai beef salad, which is not normally a pub meal, and it's a little bit risky to be ordering such a fancy meal in a country pub, but it was actually pretty good. So yeah, that was my Grampians experience. And actually, upon reviewing my car, upon looking over my car a bit further, I did have very minor damage. I broke the front grille, which is just plastic. I broke a couple of clips which hold the air intake on, but I didn't break all of them, so I was still able to clip the air intake on. And I think I blew a headlight or a parking light. I think it was a parking light. But yeah, I'm pretty lucky on my end that I didn't damage things further in my car. And, you know, bull bar or nudge bar, something like that, they're expensive. I'm reluctant to put one on my car for that reason. I'd like to get myself an actual four-wheel drive one day, hopefully in the next year or two, and so saving up for that. I don't really want to be spending $2,000 on a bull bar, but I've recently looked up the prices of nudge bars, and they're like $700, so I'm considering putting one of them on my car, just as, you know, add protection. It's not full coverage, but it at least protects the radiator, which is, you know, like if you break a headlight, you can still drive home. If you break if you break your radiator, you can't drive home. So yeah, that's my sort of thought process, if you like. So, MarTV says, When I was in Halls Gap, I saw tons of kangaroos and deer, but I also saw some emus on a rare occasion. Yeah, Halls Gap is just teeming, absolutely teeming with wildlife. Thinking of four-wheel drives and that sort of thing, here's a different story, which, let's see, we're almost hit the hour mark. I don't want to do a part 3, so we're just going to continue until I've finished everything. But I'm getting a bit warm, so wow. So this is the story of how I was trying to find a camp and I got bogged. And I wasn't in a four-wheel drive. Of course, four-wheel drives can still get bogged, but it's a lot, it's expected in a four-wheel drive that you've got stuff to pull you out if needed. But not in my car, not in my little Subaru Outback. And this is my old one, my 2001 model. But yeah, I was driving around Lang Lang trying to find a camp. Actually, was it Lang Lang or no? It was Cooroorup. Yeah, it was Cooroorup. I was trying to find a campsite around Cooroorup, and I sort of had to drive into the forest a bit, and it was fairly muddy. And although my car could definitely cope with a little bit of mud, too much mud and too much of an incline, and things don't turn out so well. And I got my car on a position where I'd sort of gone over a steep ledge, and so my wheels were touching the ground but had barely any traction in the mud, and these are just normal road tyres, so anyone who knows anything about tyres knows that highway terrain tyres just go too slick in the mud. And so I was like, oh dear, I'm stuck with no real way to get out. A common mistake is to just start madly spinning your wheels. If you're ever in the position where you're stuck and you don't think you've got any way of getting out, don't spin your wheels. You're just going to dig yourself a hole, literally. So I knew that, and I didn't spin my wheels too much. And I was with Les at the time, and I said to him, look, we're bogged. We've got to get out, and we've got to go find sticks, bark, rocks, anything that we can sort of jam under the wheels to try and get us traction and try and reverse out of here. So it wasn't too bad in the end. We did manage to find enough sticks and rocks and barks and stuff, and managed to get out without too much trouble, but gave me a little scare, that's for sure. And there's been, although I run all-terrain tyres on my current Outback, I'm still wary of the mud and anywhere which is a steep drop-off or something like that. My car is good, but it's not a real four-wheel drive in the end, so yeah. Roderick Smith says, the 2 Roo collisions which resulted in insurance repairs, the Roo jumped away. The one which I killed did no damage. It is all to do with flukish angles rather than speed. A lot of the time, yeah. Although I think if you hit a Roo at 100 k's an hour with a bull bar on, you'd kill it. no matter what funky angle it landed on, which I suppose is good for the kangaroo. I'd rather see the kangaroo killed in an incident than injured badly. G'day Marcus. This is a fairly quick story because it's been sort of told on Fogarty Avenue, but when we were trying to get to camp at Lang Lang, when we were walking the South Gippsland line, and just before I get into that, I should say that we found a camp in Kubirup, but we didn't end up needing it because we ended up sleeping in the scout hall. Back to Lang Lang. So we'd walked past Caldermead, which was sort of the last level crossing, if you like, the last road, accessible road before where we'd planned to camp. We were walking along and we were maybe 2-3 k's out of camp, and we hit a giant wall of blackberry bushes. So many goddamn blackberry bushes that we knew that we just couldn't get through them. So in the end we had to turn back, walk back to Coldmead, walk along the freeway, which was not ideal, but we didn't have a choice really. I walked slightly ahead of the others, and so I ended up walking on the outbound side of the freeway, whereas the others walked on the inbound side of the freeway. Different forms of logic. They reasoned that they were less likely to get hit because you could sort of see any cars that were approaching that were about to hit you. My logic was that I didn't have to cross the road, so I was less likely to get hit in that way. But what did happen with me was that I was walking along the highway, and I was keeping, as far up to the left of the road as I could. But then a car passed me, and unbeknownst to me, they turned around and came back and slowed up behind me and beeped their horn to get my attention. And I turned around and I could see they were an old couple, and they put down the window and said, what are you doing? Do you need a hand or anything? And I explained what I was doing, and they said, we live in Lang Lang. You're welcome. If you want a lift, jump in the back of our car and we'll take you to Lang Lang. And that way you don't have to walk on the freeway. And I said, thank you very much, that would be great. So I put my bag in the back and hopped in myself. They were a lovely couple, there's stranger danger and all that, but I was alright. I knew these people weren't going to do anything, and they were just, good Samaritans. And so, they very kindly dropped me off in the middle of town, and I went to find camp and I found it, but I didn't have half the stuff that I needed to set up camp. So there wasn't much setting up I could do, and I think it was maybe half an hour to an hour later, Les and the rest of them rocked up, and from memory, actually, the car turned around, and I think they finished dropping me off, and then they said to me, would the others like a lift? And I said, you can try them. I'm sure they would. and so the car turned around and went to go pick them up, but the others refused. I guess they thought, stranger danger, whatever. Fair enough. They'd seen me get in the car, and they didn't know what had happened to me, so I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that was fun. So, what are we? We're at an hour and 8 minutes. That's all of the stories that I really had written down covered. So now I guess I'll just talk about a few tips and then my favourite campsites, and I'll show a few photos for my favourite campsites as well. So my first tip is that your camping style and gear, etc., doesn't need to be fancy. I've camped before with some pretty basic setups. Often the more basic is the better setup. In many ways, you don't even have to take your own food. If you're going and camping in Lang Lang, for example, there are shops in Lang Lang. You can drive your car to where I camped, which is under the Trestle Bridge. Stay there, have a good time, and then when you need to eat, just drive into town. All you really need is somewhere to sleep, which can be the back of your car. What do you need for that? A sleeping bag and maybe a sleeping mat and a pillow. That's pretty basic. I've done it before like that, so nothing wrong with that. Cheap gear versus quality gear. While there's nothing wrong with starting off with the cheap gear if you're on a very low budget or you're just starting out and you're not too sure about things, but what I would say is that you definitely get what you pay for. And if you can afford the quality gear and you know that you're going to be using it, it will last you a lifetime, and I would recommend it. So, some basic camping items that I would start with. Camping by car is the most basic form of camping that you can do. And as I've just said, all you really need is somewhere to sleep. So sleeping bag, sleeping mat, pillow. Even then, I guess you don't have to have that. You can just sort of recline your chair and sleep in the chair in the car if you want. And that could still be classed as camping. So up to you. If you want to upgrade a little bit, I'd say get some cooking equipment. If you're going to be going out regularly, and you're going to some more remote-ish places, definitely worth investing in a quality first aid kit. Survival, that's it. Survival first aid. That's the brand that I've got, and I think they're really good quality. So, you can, if you're thinking of getting a first aid kit, you can consider them. But a lot of people like St John's Ambulance. I'm sure they're pretty good as well. I mean, they do good work, St John's. But the downside is you've also got to know how to use your first aid kit. And even if you've got little to no first aid training or experience, I would say that's especially when it would be good for you to get something like a Survival first aid kit. Survival the brand. because their stuff is all very clearly labelled and is fairly self-instructing, if that makes sense. Whereas the St John's ambulance kit is very complete, very good quality, but it's not necessarily going to tell you what to do. You've got to know what to do. And if you know what you're doing, go for it. Buy St John's. But that's just one of the reasons I like Survival. There are other reasons, but yeah. Obviously not sponsored or anything. And some cooking equipment, basic cooking equipment. Don't forget the cleaning equipment. Pack good quality clothes, and appropriate clothes. Yeah, there's nothing worse than being too cold, or I guess too hot while you're camping, although it's much easier to take off clothes because you've got too many on than it is to put on clothes if you haven't bought any. So, something to consider. And I guess on the notion of cars, certain cars are better at camping than others, I guess. If you've got a station wagon, that's obviously going to have a bit more space, or a proper four-wheel drive, even better. And yeah, I've got a Subaru Outback. I think they're a great car for light duty off-roading, and yeah. If you're hiking, then you definitely need to buy yourself a tent and a hiking pack. Now, I don't actually own my own hiking pack. I really should get myself one, but I've always just borrowed friends or hired one. And that's a good point, is that if there's any sort of piece of equipment, like major bit of equipment that you need for a certain expedition, but you're not quite ready to buy it for yourself, a lot of camping stores will hire you gear if you ask. They'll hire you everything from a tent to shoes to a satellite phone if you're going really remote. And that is something to keep in mind, is that you always want to have some sort of emergency communications. So, if you're camping within phone reception, great. That's all you really need is your phone. If you're going outside of phone reception, at least make sure that you're with other people, so that if something happens to you, they can help you out of the situation and get you to a point where there is phone reception. But then, at some point, you've really got to think about getting yourself an EPIRB at the very least, or a satellite phone or something like that. Because, you've got to, especially when you're going remote, you've got to think of what's the worst that can happen. This applies to both car and hiking. When you start to get a bit of equipment that you start bringing along, sort it and have it compartmentalise it, right? So if you're hiking and you've got a hike pack, just find various bags and whatnot that it can be a garbage bag, or plastic bags of some sort, or it can be soft cloth bags, but get yourself a bunch of them, and have one bag for your cooking and cleaning equipment, one bag for your clothes, another for your tent and sleeping bag, for example, or your tender sleeping bag can probably just be separate because they come in their own bags. But yeah, I was originally taught in school to just sort of stuff everything in there, and while that is certainly fine for a school camp where the majority, a school hike I should say, where the majority of people are going to be hiking for that trip and that's about it, so there's no real need for them to invest in any real gear or anything like that. But yeah, compartmentalise it, because the worst thing is when you are trying to find the one thing and it's at the bottom of your pack and you've got to pull everything out to get to it, and then you find the thing and you're like, oh fine, you know, my head torch is buried at the bottom of the pack, and then you put all of it back in. If it's compartmentalised, you'll still have the problem of finding it at the bottom of the pack, but now you've only got to take out 3 or 4, you know, bulky-ish items, rather than 10,000 little bits and pieces. So there's that. And well, I think it applies especially to hiking, the car as well. Like, you'll just have a much better time if you can find stuff. And when Les and I went on our air trip, our 2-week road trip, we had things all sorted in boxes. It took, no joke, it took us like a day to actually get it all packed, but we probably overpacked. And I guess that brings us on to our next tip, which is don't overplan, like we did with our 2-week road trip. Yeah, we definitely overplanned it. Don't overpack as well. You don't necessarily need 10,000 items. It can be good, but keep in mind, you might not actually use it all. Next tip, short trips are better than no trips. That's something that I've sort of learnt over the years, is that although I would love to go on more long trips, you just can't always find the time, and I would rather go on a short trip, even if it's for a day or so, and get the experience of, you know, camping out there, and yeah, I'd rather do that than not go out at all, or wait till I have a very long trip. That's just personal preference. And my rough goal is to go out camping for at least one night, at least once a month. So far, I think I've been out camping for one night this year, so I've definitely failed my mission plan, but it's the thought that counts. Final tip, let someone know your plans. I think no matter where you're going or what you're doing, that's always a good thing, is to let someone know who isn't going to be with you, be it a friend or a family member, or, you know, someone who is going to be following along with what you're doing but isn't going to be there. The reason why you want that is so that if something goes horribly wrong, and it's good to keep in touch with them while your trip is going. So then if there's some point where you planned to check in with them and you didn't, and they will obviously try to contact you. If they can't get onto you, then in the worst of scenarios, they can possibly arrange a rescue for you if, you know, things have gone horribly wrong. You've been bitten by a snake in the middle of nowhere, and you have no way of calling out for help. and that's another reason why it's good to go with multiple people. I'm not saying don't ever go camping on your own, of course not. I've been camping on my own many a times, but just take extra precautions, I guess, if you're on your own. Doesn't hurt. Roderick says, why do you never take food when hiking in a desert? Because the sandwich is there. Because of the sandwich is there. Yes, indeed. But that is a good point as well. Take enough food and water. I've told you on the last live stream of the time that I ran out of water when I was camping. That was not a good experience. I mean, it all worked out in the end, but could have gone a lot worse. Mark says, ever tried a hammock for the night? I have, and I'm not huge on hammocks. Some people love them. I'm sort of neither here nor there. Yeah, they can definitely form a very basic setup or part of one. But yeah, I don't know. Not really my thing. Roderick says, all of my bush hiking predated the electronics, always with the group, and register with the police station to state intentions, then afterwards to state safe arrival. Yeah, that would be a good way of going about it. No real need to do that sort of thing these days. I'm sure you could if you were really like that, but yeah, you've got phones, so you can check in with family members. So, final thing for the night, which we will show some more photos of, is my favourite campsites. So, oops, we go here and then we go here. Alright. This was one of my favourite campsites. This is on the Malort Plains, beside the Malort railway line. And I don't know what it was about it. The scenery is nothing spectacular, but you've got pretty sweeping views, and yeah, I don't know. It's just a memorable campsite. That was the view down the track, down the gradient at sunset. It's inside the tent with Les and Max setting up camp for the night. And notice wraps. That's a fairly common camping, hiking staple food. That's after we'd just packed up camp, I believe. And we're getting ready to depart for the day, but yeah, magic memories. And some more views of the Malort Plains. Ah, that's the Trestle Bridge at Lang Lang. And I thought I had a better photo of this camping setup, but apparently I don't. That's our tent right there, as you can see. We would have had 2 tents at that stage, I think. But yeah, I don't know where the other one was, but that was my tent, and I set it up directly underneath the Trestle Bridge. So that's nice. Nyora Turntable. That's another nice campsite. That's James there cooking baked beans for breakfast and listening to the radio. That's quite a nice little camp stove I've got there as well. Kathmandu. Bought it years ago. It's quality. It's lasts me. Showing no signs of slowing down either. So, not that I've used it that heavily, but still. James on the Nyora turntable again. That's Cameron, and you can really see how all of our clothes were wet, and so we've sort of hung up all of our socks and our hats and our, I think that's a tent bag, but I think that's a shoe over there, don't know what that is, but yeah, that's another shoe. All of our gear was wet. I think that's a belt or something, and yeah, dried it out on the turntable. Nice. Skipping forward to Green Hill Lake. This is my favourite Ararat campsite. It's free beside the lake. You get flushing toilets and flowing water at the toilet blocks. I think if you pay, you can even have a hot shower. Don't quote me on that though. But yeah, Ararat, Green Hill Lake. And that's us in, well, our van, Liz's van, when we were camping at Green Hill Lake. That's Hall's Gap. Yeah, love Hall's Gap. Unfortunately, Les wasn't feeling too great that night, but the Plantation Campground specifically, nice free camp that I've used a few times. That's a very dark photo of my pizza oven actually, my portable pizza oven, wood-fired, and the wood was getting quite hot, as you can see, with the flames coming out the chimney. Normally the flames aren't not meant to come out the chimney, but they were, so. That's the Nil RAAF base. Let's see if I can brighten it up just a tad. Yeah, picture quality is not great, but you get a basic idea. Oh, that was a nice campsite, was Japarrat. Camping beside the Trestle Bridge at Japarrat. You know, a lot of these places are not official campsites, but if you're respectful, etc., follow the usual, you know, pick up your rubbish, don't be too loud, etc., etc., you'll be fine. The van, and a view over the Japarrat Trestle Bridge, over the Goulburn River. I don't know off the top of my head what river that is. I'm sure Roderick Smith can tell me. But yes, moving on. That is the Hopetoun Lake Lascelles campsite. That used to be a real favourite of mine because it used to have free hot showers, and that was just the best. I believe it still has showers, but they're cold now. People were overusing them, which is fair enough. I think they were originally like gold coin donation, but then nobody donated, so the bill got a bit high and they shut it down, which is a shame, but yeah. It's just a very popular campground, and if you stay there, especially in peak season, be prepared to look quite hard for your campsite. because there's people all around the lake, and be prepared to be woken up by a jet ski at 7 a.m. So, yeah, sometimes the nicest campgrounds are also the worst campgrounds at the same time. There's often lots of caravans as well. So, I don't know. I try to avoid caravans if I can. But that photo was taken at, what's the time? 8:42 p.m. And 58 seconds, it seems. But you can see nice flat lake because all of the jet skis had been taken off the water for the evening. You do get a break in the evening, but apart from the evening, like all day, every day, there's jet skis in peak season. Oh, possibly my most memorable campsite ever. Camping on top of the silos at Cowan. Man, I will never forget that day. Yeah, there's some scale perspective, a standard height van, and is it Max below there? I think so. I think that's Max. He's, call it somewhere in the realm of 5'11", 175 centimetres. I could be wrong. I can't actually remember what height Max is, but average sized person, fairly average sized person, not exceptionally tall or anything, or short, and you can just get a sense for how high up you are on these silos. You certainly have to not have a fear of heights. I certainly don't. So, Les was okay with heights, but he wasn't great. I think still to this day he's like that, but you can see he's looking a little bit stressed being up that high, but yeah, it's still cool. And I've got a whole video of camping on top of the silos if you want to watch that. It's one of my earliest videos, I think. Max and Les slept on this, which was once a water tank holder, I'm assuming, and I slept up here. You can see I was surrounded on all four sides, and I don't tend to move around a lot in my sleep, so there's no way I was gonna fall off of the edge of the silos in the middle of the night. So yeah, one of my most memorable campsites, and I really should go back there. I would really like to. Sunset by the looks of it, or is it sunrise? It's sunrise, 6:40 a.m. I woke up for the sunrise. How about that? I remember the stars were amazing, but my phone was terrible in low light, so I couldn't actually take any photos of the skies. But I should go back with this current camera because my current camera is very good in low light. So inside of the silos and a full view of the silos. Cowan, hey? Gotta love it. And there's the end of the railway line. The railway line used to extend from Sea Lake to Cowan. It's been abandoned for maybe 20 years, maybe longer. I don't actually know. But yeah, that photo actually got onto the back cover of Newsrail once. So that's nice. And of course, last week's thumbnail, last live stream's thumbnail, I should say, camping at Rubicon. Rubicon's got to be one of my favourite camping spots of all time as well. So, reading some comments. RTV, I'm guessing it's a disused railway line. Yeah. I don't know which one you were referring to specifically, but yes. Imagine sleeping in a tent next to an active freight line where they just scare the shit out of you when you're sleeping. Well, I've done better. I've slept next to an active passenger line. I guess I can talk about that. That was a memorable camping experience. What are we? 1 hour, 38 minutes. Don't care. We've still got, how many? 5 people hanging around. So, yeah, I slept in Little River next to the railway line. I was sort of hidden behind the bushes, so I wouldn't be disturbing any passing trains. They wouldn't see me and get freaked out. They wouldn't report me. But yeah, slept in the bushes with a friend. Set up the tent there. That was cool. And the reason why we chose to camp there was because I believe it was the last interstate Horizon, or one of the last interstate Horizon trains. So yeah, that was the reason for doing it. And yeah, we got woken up in the night a few times by the freight trains, but we kind of wanted that. So yeah, I think at one point we climbed the signal gantry and saw a couple of trains from there. Tried not to get spotted, but yeah, that's right, MarTV, I really did that. There's no limit to where you can camp, really, so long as you can find a bit of flat ground and you're not going to be disturbed for the night, or at least you're not going to be. You can be disturbed if you want to be, but yeah. And just another quick story, thinking of disturbing. I might have mentioned this in my last episode, but I'll mention it again. I was camping with Les, and I don't know where we were, but we'd gotten there really late, and there were some other people there, and this van had some issues with the alarm, and the alarm went off in the middle of the night. That was fun. Woke the whole campsite up. Didn't wake Les up, but it woke me up, and I had the keys, thankfully, so I was able to unlock it from the tent and just fix it as best as I could, because I think one of the doors had been left slightly ajar. But shortly afterwards, the other people who had obviously woken up, they left. So I felt kind of sorry for them, because this was at 1 or 2 a.m, something like that. The Wimmera River, says Roderick. Makes sense, since we were in the Wimmera. Roderick also says, I once slept in the shelter on the very narrow island platform at Tailem Bend. Where? It's a campsite. I've never slept... Okay, I was going to say I've never slept on the platform of a station. I almost did at Witcherproof. But, yeah. I think I ended up sleeping in the train, so even better. Mark says, earlier you mentioned the goal of at least one night a month camping. Where are you thinking for the month of May? Oh, good question. I want to go back to Rubicon. You know, ever since I've met Phil from the Hill, which was my last one night, my last camping experience, full stop. I'd like to go back and see if I can find him again. I do have his phone number, but I don't know if he has his phone. So I'll go back to Rubicon and see if I can find him. Maybe go to Alexandra, see if I can find him. If I can't, I'll send him a text or something. And yeah, back to Rubicon. I'm sure I'll be back to Rubicon many times. As I said in the last episode, I plan to go hiking there in September, November, maybe not September, because my exams are around then. November probably, but we'll see. And one last camping story that I would like to mention is just that I went to South Australia. Where in South Australia? It was just over the border. I can't quite remember the town. G'day Tony. But it was a small town that, if you know the radio station Triple J, they have an event that they call the One Night Stand, where it's basically a free music concert which they host in some random tiny Australian town. Well, it doesn't have to be tiny, but relatively small Australian town. And so, yeah, it was being held in this town. It starts with L, I can't remember. But Les wanted me to join him, so I did. But we were travelling in separate cars, and I arrived a lot earlier than he did. I don't think I even got to see him come in, even though I stayed up quite late. But I remember I had to do a bunch of uni work, and so I had the interior light of my car on. The mate which I was with, who came with me in my car, he went to bed at a fairly reasonable time, but I had to stay up to do all this uni crap. I think I had an assignment due or something. And so, yeah, I was busily writing down my assignment with the interior light on, turned it off for the night, all good, I thought. And the next day I went to turn my car on and nothing. I'd flattened my battery. So that was fun, but it was all good because I had jumper leads and I got Les to jumpstart me because at that point he was around. But I remember that was the time when I was like, oh, can I borrow your jumper leads? And he's like, I don't have jumper leads. And I just slapped myself square in the face, because that's definitely something you should bring with you camping if you're using your car, or just bring in your car in general, is some jumper leads, because if you get a flat battery, don't count on someone else to have jumper leads. And I guess if you've got a four-wheel drive, don't count on someone else to have recovery equipment. You should have your own recovery equipment. Anyway, 1 hour 47 minutes according to my timer. Well over the hour mark, but hey, there's a lot to talk about. I've been camping a lot, and there's been many stories over the years. So hope you enjoyed, and there won't be a part 3. I've told enough bloody camping stories. What's going to be in 2 weeks' time? Dunno, we'll see. I'll announce the topic on the day. Look through my list. but I'm always open to suggestions. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this one, and hope to see you on the next one. Lamoureux before I go, says Rod. No, it's not. You know what? Before I do go, let me just find it just to set the record straight, because it's not Lamoureux, and I'll know it when I see it, and it's not that small. Lucendale, there we go. Wasn't that hard, was it? Just a quick look on Google Maps. I believe I went there via Warrnambool and Haywood and Mount Gambier. Briefly scoped the Haywood to Mount Gambier line, and then went back via the Grampians, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that is truly it for tonight. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I know it was a long one, and hope to see you soon. I'm getting closer and closer to releasing an actual video, but still no actual timeline. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks. See you later.